Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Always appreciate that you choose to spend your time with us. And you're going to be glad you did. Today, we're going to be talking with Becky Heidesch about negotiating success in today's new work world. So, welcome, Becky. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Happy
Yeah,
to
and for
be
the,
here.
Yes, I'm excited for the conversation. And for those of you who may not know her, Becky's a career strategist, a media resource entrepreneur. She's earned her BA, her MA, her MBA. So definitely no shyness to that overachieving gene. She's the founder of a nationwide boutique search firm, 2 online career centers, a women's sports publication, and a marketing agency. And she's also the author of the Career Masterclass for Women. So obviously, Becky, you're on a mission to help people navigate this sort of fast-changing new world of work that we are in. I think that was already happening pre-COVID, really escalated it. How'd you come to this particular work?
Well, it's really a combination of, I would say, the mistakes, navigating,
Yeah,
making several career transitions myself, changing industries, starting businesses, and then obviously being in the work of career management and job placement for the last 30 years and working with, multiple individuals, executives, and professionals in a number of industries and placing them in industries and watching how the workforce has changed.
yeah.
So, it's my experience, it's a number of other individuals, and through, numerous conversations, hundreds and hundreds of interviews and conversations, you begin to see a lot of the same mistakes we've all made, or
Yeah.
common mistakes or pivots and detours, that happen to all of us along the path. And then, of course, with everything that's happened in the workforce, things are happening at a much more rapid pace today.
Yeah, no question. And I'm going to definitely want to unpack all of that. And just for our listeners who may be going, I'm not sure if this, matters to me. Let's chat for a minute about why is it important to think about these changes, the change we're seeing in today's world. And feel free to give us some stats on some of the changes that we're seeing and or that are likely to be coming our way.
What is estimated to be the average number of jobs an individual will have today is 12, and the average number of careers is between 4 and 7.
Yeah, wow.
So, as our maybe for some of us, our parents and our grandparents, that one job,
Yeah.
retiring with the golden handcuffs,
Yeah.
and the retirement and all of that sort of thing, those days are long gone. And, I think the future is going to be many careers, and we're going to have a lot of many careers. And there really is no job security anymore. Whether you work for a Fortune 500 company, whether you run your own business, whether you work for somebody else, all of those dynamics have changed today.
Yeah.
We have business changing at a rapid pace. We have artificial intelligence. We have geopolitical concerns. We have the economy. We have entrepreneurship, we have freelancing, right now, the 19 or 2000, and I think it's estimated to be next year, 2025, 87 million people will be freelancing.
Yeah. Wow.
The whole workforce is changing, dynamics are changing. So what that means is individuals must be able to manage their career through multiple changes, and they must be able to pivot in a moment's notice. They must know how to generate cash flow, and they must be prepared to be able to move into the next thing that they're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm seeing that. I mean, practicing, social justice and with an emphasis on labor law for 30 years, it's stunning to me how quickly we're seeing these kind of shifts. Well, what was something, Becky, that you would say would be one of the most surprising things that you discovered? What surprised you most while you were researching for your book?
Probably the freelance,
Yeah.
in terms of, the I have a daughter that's a Gen Z teenager, and
Yeah.
how they look at work today is
Yeah.
is entirely different. How they look at careers is entirely different. So I think that has changed. Even how
Yeah.
they look at education is
Yeah, sure.
entirely different, and developing skills. I really believe that, we really didn't kind of learn how to manage our careers, and, it's become very complex. And I think the other thing is, the it's really important today to know how to package yourself and repackage yourself for multiple careers. And with what's happened today, with with where we've moved from a digital, I would say the other thing is the movement on digital.
Yeah.
You have to stay up with your digital skills. There's just no way around it. And when you take a look at, the fastest growing workforce or the fastest growing demographic that's entering the workforce today is 75 and older.
Wow.
And so the unfortunate part about that is what they lack is the digital skills.
Yeah.
What they bring to the table, of course, is, wonderful dependability, great
Yeah.
wisdom, and, they have so much to offer the workforce. And so if you could take that and you could blend that with the Gen Z, you have the Gen Z that has the digital skills, but they could certainly benefit from what,
Yeah.
the aging population has in terms of experience and wisdom. But I
Yeah.
think those things are that is the future. There's just
Yeah.
no way around it. That train left the station a long time ago, and it's really critical to stay up with that no matter what you're doing. So I think staying entrenched in digital is really important. And I think it's really critical to be able to know how to generate cash flow. And so to be able to take your skills and to be able to monetize those and have that in your back pocket, I think is the number one essential skill for survival in what's coming, and be able to do that no matter what in a moment's notice.
Now, what do you mean when you say that? Like the cash flow? What like as a practical matter for our listeners, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think, for most people, traditional people, they do it every day when they go to work and they generate, they get the paycheck at the end of the week or 2 weeks, whatever their situation is. They are, in a sense, monetizing their skills and collecting a paycheck. But what I want them to do is be able to take a look at those skills and the skill sets they have, or even the hobbies they have,
Yeah.
and be able to kind of do that on another platform, on another situation on the back end. For some people, I have neighbors who, love to be in the fruits and vegetables, and it's a farmer's market on the weekend that they do.
Yeah.
For somebody else, maybe it's flipping houses, and it's one or two flipping houses a year, and they can use their skill set to do that. For somebody else, maybe they're very good in finance and accounting, or they can, maybe they can help the neighbors, or they can help family in terms of, doing accounting or
Yeah.
taxes, whatever the situation is. But they've got to be able to know what they can do when they are unemployed, because
Yeah.
the most critical part is to be unemployed without cash flow for, it could be 2 years.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people are unemployed for longer than they think.
So diversification, I'm hearing, right? Like have some, don't just put all your eggs in one basket, have a few different possible sources of income. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, and I can't believe you blew me away when you said that the fastest growing 75 years old plus. I mean, that kind of breaks my heart in some ways, right? To think after
It
a
is.
lifetime of contribution, people having to jump back in the workforce. So, speaking of that, let's talk about mindset for a moment. I am like a broken record because I believe that negotiating our mindset is our first and most important negotiation. What advice do you have for us on negotiating our mindset, if you will, so we can show up more powerfully in this obviously very changing landscape?
Well, I think, one of the things is knowing that you have control.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in front of a situation, you're going to have more confidence.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so I think by having the mindset that I really can plan to have multiple careers, I can, whatever I'm doing now, I can ride that as long as I'm going to ride that. But I'm also going to have the mindset that I'm going to be able to take control and manage the next steps of my career, and
Yeah.
have the mindset to do that. The negotiating part, and that can be negotiating their compensation today and negotiating their salary to get
Yeah.
today, and how they're doing that today. And, but it's that mindset of laying it out and staying in the driver's seat of
Yeah.
their career, staying in the driver's seat and making sure that they are the ones managing that and staying at the forefront of that.
Smart. And with that control, I guess part of that is that preparation, right? Like doing some of the things that you're talking about and being prepared. And I often say that, and that's the case for any negotiation, frankly, that confidence to be able to show up and get those better outcomes comes from putting the work in at the front end, do that preparation. So now I know you advocate that everyone needs a sort of 3-career strategy, and that piques my interest. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, I think that, it's natural that we're all going to be tired of doing one thing, and especially today, we're living longer. And, it's not uncommon. You take a look today at, obviously take a look at our politics. You look at the
Yeah.
individuals and how you take a look at how old or older we are working in the workforce
Yeah.
today. And, people are doing good work in some cases, at an older age, and they have a lot to contribute still. You
Yeah.
see authors, you see a lot of people contributing, you see actors, you see a lot of people contributing, at an older age. So I think it's not uncommon, and it's natural to want to continue. Some people, that's what they want to do, and that is the retirement or a semi-retirement. So, and I think we grow out of the work that we're doing, and we develop new skills and we develop new interests. So I think, and sometimes we start out on a career path that we just ended up there and we didn't really know how we
Yeah.
ended up
That's
there. We
very
weren't
true.
following a passion, or we
Yeah.
weren't following what we really wanted to do. So I think that, and sometimes, people have a desire to start a bit, if I went back and I did it again, I really believe that if you want to run and start a business, go follow someone doing exactly what you want to do first
Yeah.
before you go jump in and you do it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's ways to do this thing. And if you can kind of look at it as a 3-career strategy, you can really kind of, stack things on top of it and stack your skills, and you can do some creative things, and you don't
Yeah.
have to be stuck in one lane.
Yeah, you really struck a chord with me when you talked about that, how we end up just doing something. It was one of the things that prompted me to start Women on Purpose. It's this, I think we so often do what's expected of us. Women in particular, I think that's the case,
Yep.
right? We do what's expected and we don't follow our own purpose or our passion in life. So now you spoke about the digital piece. What are some other ways that we can stay marketable in these, pretty unpredictable times?
Yeah, I think you certainly, especially women, I think the financial side is really important, knowing the numbers.
Yeah.
That's really key. Moving up in any organization, knowing numbers, this in your background, whether or not it's managing your own finances, or if you want to manage, in terms of leading an organization or managing a department, those things are important. If you can manage a P&L, if you can manage a budget, if you can manage your finances. So I think all along the way, that's an important thing, those types of things.
Yeah.
New certifications, new anytime you can increase, your skills, tools, education, any of those types of things. So, anytime you can add on an additional
Yeah.
thing that is coming up that keeps you relevant, staying in a new class, doing those types of things. Emotional intelligence, we're struggling to get along today. We're struggling to work out our agreements, how
Yeah.
to get along with people, collaborate, get things done. It seems like simple things, but the executive functioning skills, just being able to follow through on things, detail, I see a lot of the younger generation struggling with such basic skills of time management,
Yeah.
organization, those
That's
types of
true.
things. So
Yeah.
all of those things, still are important and relevant to the marketplace. And then I think having a digital presence is really important
Yeah.
today, whether or not we want to go in that. And then being able to protect yourself online today. There are huge risks
Yeah.
online today, and that's going to become a bigger and bigger component
Yeah.
of protecting your career.
My gosh, so much packed in there. We're going to have you back and have another whole session about that. There's so much we could unpack. One of the things that really jumped out at me is when you said about, I want to put a pin for our listeners, try new things, right? Put yourself, because It amazes me how powerful that is, that confidence competence loop, that if you put yourself out there and try new things, allow yourself to grow, you get more confidence. And with that confidence, you step out and you try even more new things, which gives you even more confidence. And it's like this beautiful infinity loop upwards that I think so many people miss the boat on because they're afraid of failing instead of trying something and learning from the failure and recognizing that that's part of that path to success. I love that you
Absolutely.
emphasize
Absolutely.
that. Now, I
Yeah.
know you speak a lot about steep qualifications, and tell us
Mhm.
what are they, and how do we use them?
It's really my kind of, if I had to summarize, a really good way for people to, I believe, to look at how to build, for younger people to build, and people along the path to build and manage, professionals to manage their career. So if you really focus on, what I consider the steep qualifications, skills, tools, education. So if you go STEEP,
Okay,
skills, tools, education, experience, and then personal qualifications.
that's a
So
great
skills,
acronym.
yeah. Yeah, skills, you've got to have, you have to have the skills for whatever it is that you're
Yeah,
going to do. Got to have the skills. Tools, a lot of times, there's all kinds of tools out there, but we don't have sometimes, we're in a particular field, but we
yeah,
don't know how to use the tools that we have,
yeah,
and we've got to know what tools we need to be able to maximize the skills that we have. Education, we have to stay up with what we need there. We've got to have the relevant experience, like I was talking about, the financial side and P&L, the management, leadership, whatever the case is, and then personal qualifications, just like what you were talking about, the confidence,
yeah,
being able to have that grit, that resilience, getting back up, wanting to keep going no matter what, goal setting,
yeah,
going after it, the
yeah.
drive, the innovation, being able to take initiative.
Yeah, steep. I like that. I love. I'm a big believer in acronyms. It keeps it easy to remember. I really I like that.
Mhm.
Oh, you spoke earlier about the risks like online and how to protect ourselves. What do you see as some of the top career risks today, and how can people sort of navigate or negotiate that to be able to protect themselves?
Well, I certainly think, being let go and not have an income is a career risk. And, whether you're fired or canceled or,
Yeah,
any of those types of things are huge career risks. Online, I think, you can be in a second, somebody
yeah,
can post something and it can be your reputation, it can
yeah,
be anything. And whether true or false, it can be detrimental to your career. We
yeah,
have had candidates where, we've got clients and candidates, and something was posted regarding a candidate from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and it affected their candidacy,
yeah,
things like that. So, I think that whether we like it or not, everything is a digital trail today.
yeah,
And so it's, the flip side, there's also another whole industry developing to protect us from those types of things. But, it's a huge risk, and it's hard to defend yourself.
yeah,
It's really hard to defend yourself. And once it happens, you are really the victim of it.
yeah.
And, the loss is your loss. And so it's really unfortunate, but there are people that are suffering from that.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the cancel culture, but you're right. That's a huge factor now. So
Yep.
what are some tips you would say on how people can negotiate career transition successfully? Because it sounds like most that, I mean, given the numbers you're sharing, most people are going to be, if not everybody, at some point making these career transitions. What tips do we have for negotiating that better?
Yeah, I have a whole chapter on that in my book coming out on, really making a successful, how to make a successful career transition. So, the number one thing is it really starts with, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And that's really one of the biggest mistakes people make in terms of not being able to make a successful career transition, is because they really don't have a clear idea of where they're going or what they want to do.
Yeah,
So that's first and foremost, and you've got to really take a look at that. And that may take time. And you've
yeah,
got to be you can have kind of the pie in the sky dream, and maybe that's doable.
Yeah.
And maybe that's really what you want to do. And you can have, and really whatever it is that you want to do, you can create a path to get there.
Yeah.
But whatever it is that you want to do, from where you are to where you want to go, there's a bridge to get there, and you have to
Yeah.
build the bridge to get there. And the key is, how long is that bridge going to be? How long is it going to take you to build that bridge? And how much work is it going to take to build that bridge? And are you willing
Yeah.
to put the energy in to build that bridge to get there? But it can be done. And where most people, make the mistake is, again, not knowing where they're going, what
Yeah.
kind of bridge they need to make, and then, do I really want to do that? No. And then they kind of start a bridge and give up, start another bridge, give up, start another bridge, give up.
I was thinking as you were saying that, you can't hit a fuzzy target. And I think in any negotiation, frankly, that's often the problem. People don't get the clarity about the outcomes that they want. And it's no surprise they can't hit their targets when that's the case. So now with your STEEP, like skills is sort of the first, that S in the STEEP model. What do you see? Like, is there a number one skill that you would say, Becky, that we need to develop?
Well, I mean, it depends on, I think, the number one skill for survival, I would say, I would go back to, the cash flow thing.
Okay.
I just think it's knowing in your domain what the top, digital skills are in your domain and what's going to be needed next. And it's really focusing on what's going to be needed next in that domain, because it's going to be different, as you know. And generative and AI is going to affect industries differently. So it's really paying attention to what's happening if you're going to be staying in that same industry, paying attention to what's happening in your sector.
I love that. It's that forward thinking, right? To even go more general, that ability to, and most people who really succeed, whether as freelancers or otherwise, it's anticipating the trends before they come rather than running and playing catch up for it. I think is so important. Now, speaking of freelancing, that just blew my mind when you said, what was it, 87 million people with the freelancing? Do you have any insights for our listeners on how they can follow their passion to be more successful as a freelancer?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. In our business, we've used a lot of freelancers over the years.
Yeah.
And more of the research I've seen, even corporate America is using a lot more freelancers. You have Upwork, you have Fiverr.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sites that are, have been growing in popularity. And, a lot of companies are going to outsourcing some of the freelance project type work. So I do think it's a huge area and it's a growing area. I would say being on the side of engaging with freelancers, what I have learned is that, and I talk about this in my book, I actually have a chapter on working for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think what I would suggest for people is you really need to define, is this really like a side hustle?
Yeah.
Or is this really going to be a business? And if it's going to be a side hustle to generate cash flow, that's one thing. You're going to be a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, and you're going to look at things one way, and you might go from project to project. But if you're really going to be a business, then you are going to have to be prepared to build a brand. You're going to have to be prepared to want to wear all the hats of sales, marketing, accounting, all of those types of things. And you're going to have to be prepared for being both hustling to get the business, and as soon as you execute on the business, you got to hustle to get the next business.
Yeah.
And that's where I see kind of the disconnect, and a lot of freelancers kind of, it falls off, and they don't have that repetitive business, because they're just kind of trying to do a project here and there, and they kind of just want that freelance. But then what happens is they're not generating the kind of cash flow they need. And then they tend to want to kind of go back and get a job. And I talk about that in my book, where you're kind of on the fence, and sooner or later, it's like you have to go one or the other, and you have to fully commit.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, Becky, I cannot believe that I speak quickly and you have packed so much information in here. It's like we got double the podcast episode. We got at least an hour plus worth of information in half the time. So I love that you've been so generous with actually sharing some concrete, actionable steps for our listeners here today. And I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? It doesn't have to be about this issue at all. It could be a small thing where you had an aha moment and see things differently.
Oh gosh. I think probably in this space and in life in general is to just recognize that the right things will happen, and to just, let go and realize that whatever is happening that's the way it's supposed to be happening at that time.
That is such a gift in life. It took me a long time to get there, because otherwise you're just constantly railing against things that happen instead of embracing them and go, all right, this is happening for a reason. What can I learn from this? What new direction can I take from this? It is such a gift. So I haven't thought of that in a while. So thank you for sharing that. And where can people learn more about you, Becky?
Let's see. Well, we've got a new site coming out. WSSExecutiveSearch.com is the executive search site. And eventually I'll have the personal brand Becky Heidesch site, BeckyHeidesch.com, up in a couple of months.
Beautiful, beautiful. And again, we keep talking about your book. What's the name of the book?
The Career Masterclass for Women, and that should be out in a couple of months.
Yeah, that's perfect. We'll make sure to have, and for our listeners, don't panic. If you missed any of those contacts, we'll make sure to have those in the show notes as always for you. And Becky, again, thank you so much for sharing so many incredible nuggets with us that matter in today's changing landscape.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cindy.
Yeah, no, it was a great conversation. And for our listeners, I have no doubt, I really encourage you, re-listen to this episode again, jot down some notes as you do. We covered a lot of ground really quickly, and there was some really great nuggets in there. I know I got lots of value from this. I hope you did as well. And make sure to share this with other people and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Encourage other people to subscribe so that they can start negotiating their best life. And speaking of negotiating your best life, before we sign off, as always, would love to share some ways we can work together. If you're looking to up-level those negotiation skills because you recognize that it applies in your personal relationships, your professional relationships, your day-to-day dealings with service providers, and well beyond that into business, I've got everything from online to group to my signature mastermind and VIP experiences. So check that out at artoffemininenegotiation.com if that's something you're interested in. And make sure, for heaven's sakes, to grab my book if you haven't done that yet, Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that's a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.